Hey, secret friends, welcome back to the Holocron Chronicles. This is All Things Star Wars, episode 130, and we are back after a self-imposed exile by me because I was on vacation. But no, we're back here to talk about some Star Wars. I am joined, as always, by my number one Jedi guy who's sitting on the bridge of the Enterprise for some reason, which you could see if we were video, but we're not.
Because got moved around.
Because this gives Peter and I the opportunity to do this super cash, because it's just the two of us. And you know what? I've often found that podcast is largely a audio format. And I think if anybody is taking this in, they're probably listening to us on their iPods or AirPods or in their car pods or some kind of pods. But anyway, I'm Charlie. If you've never listened to the show before, your Jedi guy from the East Quadrant of Grand Rapids, where Peter is your Jedi guy from the West Quadrant of Grand Rapids. But we're here in Michigan talking about Star Wars. Peter, how you doing this morning?
Doing pretty well.
Rockin' dockin'. Well, we're back, and I know we've been a month off, so hopefully you hung in there with us. But we started talking about Dark Force Rising in the last episode. I'm just gonna make sure I've got the right one open. Okay, good. I didn't change my header. I'm like, we already talked about issues. We already talked about issues 1, 2, 3. This is issues 4, 5, and 6 of the adaptation of Timothy Zahn's 1992 novel that was done by Dark Horse Comics in the late 90s. So we're moving forward to that. This was back in a time when that was all the Star Wars we had. This was even before the special editions came out. It was right around the same time in the case of this. But when this was written, we had been almost 10 years out there with anything except for the Ewok adventures and some really bad cartoons. But this was your first like serious investment in Star Wars prose since movies ended, unless I'm very much mistaken. But we'll get into that. We'll wrap the story up. And of course, this is the middle trilogy of books in a trilogy of books, which means we'll be moving on to not only the last portion of this, and what's the third trilogy called?
Well, the third book of this trilogy is The Last Command.
The Last Command is the next
book.
Okay, that's right. It's a book because it's a book, but we're doing a trilogy of comics,
and then there's a trilogy of comics, and then and there's a lot of Thrawn books,
and that will get broken up. Unfortunately, when we start to talk about, fortunately or unfortunately, when we start to talk not only about the Darth Maul series that's coming out, that's going to be our next big jump, and then Mandalorian and Grogu, which as we were talking about before we got on, is about 2 months away, which is crazy because it seems like we've been waiting for that for absolutely forever. But before we jump into that, as always, want to give some love and effect to the wonderful people on our Secret Friends Unite Patreon over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. These folks get to listen to this episode early. So this episode for the world typically drops on a Wednesday. The folks on our Patreon listen to it on a Sunday. So even on your Monday commute, you're getting a chance to check this out. We also have some great exclusive programs over there, a separate channel for the folks on our Discord. It's easy to get it going. Let me break down the steps for you. Your first week when you join up is free. That's 7 days to sample all of our wares. Not only this show, but our other great shows. We have a topic-based show called Oops All Thunderdome, where we just cover a great topic. We've got a great show about Star Trek that's been running strong for 6 years now almost. And then we have a great interview segment where we talk to creatives in the sphere, whether it be writers, actors, graphic designers, artists. We talked to a lot of really great folks. So that first week is free, your first month half off, and then you stick around for as little as $2 a month, which is a bargain for the back catalog of over 5 years of great podcast and entertainment. So we'd love to have you on board. Even if you join up just as a free member, just to see when things drop, we'd love to see somebody do that. Again, patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Sign up for free, get announcements, and then try us out. See if it grabs you. So, again, okay, so now we move on. No real news in the last 30 days. That Peter and I were again talking about this as we were getting the ball rolling. That was really significant. So I think we saw another trailer for The Mandalorian and Grogu, but it wasn't, as we were talking about, really plot-centric.
No.
So there
were some set pieces and some explosions, but that was about it.
Hopefully that won't be the whole movie. Hopefully there is a plot.
Hopefully there's plot.
Yeah. I mean, this is, this film itself is a very big deal for everyone in the community, because it's been, over 7 years, or it'll be 7 years since we've had a Star Wars movie. Let's face it, the Star Wars movie franchise kind of went out with a rattle, not a bang. A lot of people feel when you talk about The Rise of Skywalker. And then that's when Star Wars TV started. So that was pretty significant. Yeah. And then this is the culmination of that first, I think, universally beloved project, which was The Mandalorian. I haven't heard too many people say, I thought The Mandalorian sucked. I'm sure there's people out there. If you think The Mandalorian sucked, drop us an email. I would love to hear a first-person recounting of why you don't enjoy The Mandalorian. I think that'd be great. secretfriendsunite@gmail.com, and of course, all of our socials, which we will not only talk about at the end of the show, but then also you can find those in the show notes. We're always interested in hearing people's thoughts, and we will certainly share those on the show if they get sent to us. So, all right. Dark Force Rising. And I did a funny thing because we've been off for so long. I went and copied this last flow, and I started to write it before I realized that we already talked about issues 1, 2, and 3. I'm like, why does this look so familiar? Because I have 2 separate documents. The other one is my notes that I type as I'm reading on my iPad, and I'm flipping through, so I got 2 hands going. And I'm like, that's why it seems so familiar. So it's unfortunate they got broke up that way, but it happens, and we have another break coming up because I have another vacation. So I'm glad you guys stick with us. I'm glad that podcasting is a non-linear access to it, so you can go back and find the previous episode easily enough, or find an episode from 3 or 4 years ago if you wanted to. So we really do appreciate people hanging in there with us. So I did do this summary, which is kind of a necessary. Unless, I don't know, you want me to read this? You think this is relevant after a month? Kind of catch people up to where we are.
I mean, this summary also covers about what we're about to talk about. So,
okay, maybe I'll read it only as far as. All right, so I'll read a summary of what we talked about last time. So, in Dark Force Rising, which came out in 1992, it is revealed that before the Clone Wars, the Old Republic had constructed a fleet of highly automated heavy cruisers known as the Katana Fleet. A virus infects the crews of the entire fleet and drove them insane. Happens all the time. That was every third episode of the old Star Trek. Let's face it. Oh my God, the Vulcans all killed each other on this ship of just Vulcans. That was the immunity? The immunity syndrome, not the immunity syndrome. The one with the big space amoeba. I just watched it last week.
That is immunity syndrome.
That is the immunity syndrome. Thank you. And it's 7 minutes and 30 seconds. We've already talked about Star Trek, which is always a goal of mine. The fleet was never seen again until Kraven the Hunter cared, who's the guy who's drawn like Kraven the Hunter in the book. So that's all he is in my notes. Yeah. Several years before the events of the first book, with access to Palpatine's private storehouse on the planet Wayland, we have a Wayland here in Michigan, which was once called a great place to buy cows by a guy I went to Boy Scouts with. That's all I'll ever think of it. Thrawn presses his advantage to marshal more forces to battle against the Republic.
And that's where we start.
And that's where we start. And all right, air brakes. Thanks. Good catch. All right, so issue 4, Peter, your turn.
All right, so issue 4, we start. So for those who don't remember where we left off, Lando and Han got picked up by a old Republic senator named Garm Beliblis, who is now a general.
Great outfit. I wrote. I said it looks like a band uniform, a Klingon uniform, or El Presidente if a third word.
Yeah, it kind of does. Yeah, it is pretty intense. So this is where Lando figures out that the ships that Beliblis is using are relics of the Katana fleet. And they're like, hey, if you know where the rest of these ships are, we could really use them. And Beliblis is kind of like, whatever. So he's like, I don't really want to rejoin the rebellion. I'm not entirely sure where everything is. So, no.
Where everything is. I can't remember where I put that.
Yeah. He doesn't exactly remember where all the Katana fleet ships are. So, because I think he picked them up from somebody else. But regardless,
kind of like at a garage sale,
flea market.
Yeah. There we go. All right, now we got the name of the episode.
Yeah. So anyway, he sends Lando and Han back out to the New Republic. They're going to talk to Mon Mothma because there's bad blood between Mon Mothma and Beliblis. So they're going to see if they can resolve that. After that, we get Thrawn is going off to do shenanigans, so he's leaving Onager. So Leia is now not under the threat of Thrawn coming to discover her in the village. And then we get our cut over to Mara Jade, who's picking up a starship from none other than Wedge Antilles.
What? Now, I was
enough.
trying to figure out. So, yeah, how does that all shake out? Because he's like the supreme commander of the
Wedge Antilles is in charge of Rogue Squadron.
There you go.
And so he's got. So he's mostly in charge of that, but he also has a little bit of pull because he's a hero of Endor and Yavin and all of that. So,
right.
But he still kind of follows what Luke says.
Luke and Han are both non-military. They're just like, yeah, we resigned, but we still just do whatever we want because we're big heroes. And it's just that part of it is just kind of mushy. But yeah, I couldn't really. I guess I was really missing why Wedge was like selling ships and stuff. Like
he wasn't selling ships; he was undercover, and so he had a ship that there was a conversation that's not in the comics that happened between Card and Solo. I think that got Wedge there to have a ship so that Mara could use it. So it was unmarked. Because Card's ships were basically known by the Empire. And Mara said that she had a secret mission that she wanted to do. We find out the secret mission is, in fact, going to visit none other than our red-eyed Grand Admiral friend himself.
I guess. And I love this. He ends up, so when she's in front of him, he ends up giving her like a pick the right grail test from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Well, it's a confirmation of her identity.
Right, exactly. So. And she also does a hustle to get in front of him from some random like imp ship captain with the classic, do you know who the F I am?
Yeah, and then she gives a really high level clearance code, and it's kind of hilarious how the comic is where you see the guy like his eyes bug out, and he's just like, whoa.
Oh, and that was the first of in one of the other issues we get a guy with the bugged out eyes.
Yeah, it's like the next issue, there's someone else freaking out.
Yeah, this guy who goes
Yeah, whoever the artist is, he just enjoys drawing people going, what? Yeah,
he's a bug guy,
which is kind of funny.
And again, I feel bad because
Mara does it like 2 panels later, where she's like freaking out.
Boing. I feel bad because again, I when I look at the creative teams, it's not because I'm such a Marvel zombie and I do read a bit of DC as well, but this is Dark Horse and it's from 30 years ago. It's not people that it's not. I don't want to say name people, but they're not probably big, more on probably a little bit more on the indie fringe because they work for Dark Horse, even though Dark Horse has really surged to have a lot of success in subsequent years. But yeah, it's not a lot of the mainliners that I'm super familiar with. Plus, it's an adaptation, so it's gonna go here, it's gonna go there. But yeah, let's see. Yeah, so I found Leia's interlude kind of boring because she's on the planet of the. Yeah,
she's on Hanagar still. And it's more interesting in the book than how it's done here. In part because it's the tension. They keep the tension a little bit more of like, oh no, we could be killed by the rest of the Nogri, or Thrawn could come back suddenly or something. Right. And that's not really, that tension isn't really kept here in the comic. As much.
I was super kind of dismayed by Leia still speaking to Chewie and Sheerwook, yet that never shows up again. But again, I guess you could really chalk that up to the EU getting thrown in the bin by Disney, and they didn't really have a lot of use of it during the select scenes that Chewie and Leia shared in The Force Awakens, or subsequent, exactly. So it's like they didn't sit down and have a rap like let's get caught up or whatever. But I guess it makes sense that she could pick it up. But even Chewie or Han is the only one who really speaks it or he knew a little bit. So definitely more shots of Mara Jade's butt. We talked about that extensively in the previous segments about that. So kind of know your audience. Thrawn turns around and double crosses Mara. Big shock.
Surprise.
Yeah, didn't really see that coming. Yeah. And I love it when Mara, she gets a big plan and she pulls up her like Lawrence of Arabia headdress and with her little goggles and she goes off to find Luke because Luke is still with crazy Gandalf guy or Gandalf, who I just keep calling him.
Yeah, Jorus
Sabaoth, which is just a Sabaoth.
Sabaoth, Cabaoth, Sabaoth. It depends on who you ask.
It rolls right off the tongue, just like people keep referring to Leia as Organa Solo, which I'm like, just pick one because it's just like, bleh. I mean, I know there are people out there that hyphenate their names, but we know, you and I know a ton of actors who we've worked with who just have a name, and that's it, whether it's their real name or their maiden name or a stage name, they just stick with the name. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
it's like Jonathan Frakes' wonderful wife, Jeannie Francis, has always been Jeannie Francis, and they've been married for 40 something years. So Leia, pick a name. She should just be Leia Organa. Boom. That's how people know her, right? So stick with, or she just be Leia, like Cher. You know what I mean? Because people are going to know who she is, Plus, she has kind of a Cher vibe, even though she's had what now feels like the longest pregnancy in the history of forever. You know what I mean? She wasn't barely pregnant at all in the first miniseries, and now she's extremely pregnant. And I think she ends up having the baby.
She gives birth at the end of the next book of the next set of comics. So Last Command, she gives
right birth. Last Command. So we're as the issue starts to wind down. So Mara is traveling to go to Gandalf's planet, and he's really good at the classic chucking rocks Jedi ability, because he chucks rocks so hard he knocks her ship out of the sky, which I'm like, why? Isn't that what happened, or was I misreading that? That's kind of what it looked like.
That's kind of what it looked like, yeah. I honestly don't remember exactly how it happened in the book, but yeah, he knocks her ship down, and she pretends to crash harder than she does.
Right.
Which then leads to her finding R2-D2 and being like, hey, I'm not here to kill Luke. I actually need his help. And R2, of course, being his normal suspicious self, doesn't like either of them, but decides that Mara is the lesser of two evils.
There you go. Oh my
which is great, because then Mara has an Isalamir on her back.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah. So she uses her kryptonite.
Yeah. Which she uses to block Cabal's influence on Luke.
Right. So
brings him into the bubble, and then R2 flies up with the X-wing and blasts.
That was pretty sweet. Now that's something you never got to see elsewhere, but I thought, that's really letting R2.
It's like, is he dead? No, R2 made it low power. It's like, it's an X-wing. How do you do that?
Yeah, right. It's like, it's only a low power howitzer that I fired at that building. It's okay. It's took off a chunk.
I just used the tank's main barrel to blast this dude, but don't worry, I put like confetti in it. It's fine.
Oh my, the little like the Joker's little gun that goes
bang.
Bang. But Gandalf, all these red flags. It's okay if I'm doing what I'm doing because it's the Jedi way and we know better. And then Luke finally is shook loose from the Kool-Aid, kind of last horse to cross the finish line. And then they break out, right? So they now, do they get away in her ship, or do they? No, I'm trying to remember.
I don't think they take her ship, because we find that smashed on the planet later.
Right.
So they managed to take another ship. They at least take Luke's X-wing.
Right.
And then at least based on the next panel in the next issue, they steal a Lambda class shuttle somehow.
Oh my, exactly. Yeah, that's right. That's what I wrote as we're getting into issue 5, is that this was the shenanigans are going to begin again, because they're flying an imp shuttle, and this whole next sequence I was kind of like, because it kind of turned into, I mean, there were bits of it that I liked, but I thought it kind of turned into like greatest hits, because they get on the ship and Luke does the distractify thing, like Obi-Wan did with when he was deactivating the tractor beam in the original film, and then he goes into a trash compactor. So I'm like, all they needed was a Dianoga to pop up and to be like, hey, do you remember when that thing happened? I thought they were digging a little deep into like, hey, let's do something unoriginal.
I don't recall there being a trash compactor in the book. I'd have to go.
They see, that makes it worse, because then they're like, let's sneak in something that the people are going to go, oh, hey, that's where they did that time.
I for whatever reason in my head it was like a ventilation shaft.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't the trash again.
Right.
I could be misremembering, but I don't recall that being that way in the book. I could be wrong.
No, I don't recall. And of course, they're going there to rescue Craven, because he's the guy who's supposed to have the kid. It's this.
He knows where the Katana fleet is, so
he's going to go pick up the flea market fleet.
And that's not the reason that Luke's there. Luke's there because Mara asked for help, and Mara's there because she doesn't want Card to think that she betrayed him, because she didn't do it on purpose.
Right. Whoops. Another distractify. Yet we still get Mara, and again, I know we're jumping around a little bit. Mara is still getting visions, or like psionic, whatever it is from beyond the grave from Palpatine saying, you got to kill Luke. So I'm assuming that's going to be something that kind of comes out more so as time goes on down the line, because we know their relationship continues to evolve. But yeah, Luke is real lucky. So crawling through the garbage compactor, he like shimmies up the walls of it, because it's like it's narrowed down enough that he can like do I got my back against one side, my feet against the other, so I'm like it's like in a weird horror movie where the like the creepy girl is turned into a spider and she goes
pretty much just the normal way of doing that.
The normal way, the normal shimmy up the wall. So that goes down like that. And then we're back to Leia's story again and again. I'm really not feeling it. It just doesn't feel super interesting to me. But we turned into the kind of convenient escape. So they find Craven and they're like, we got to get away. Let's go to the bottom of the elevator shaft. Go like the lowest level.
Yeah, we're gonna go to deep storage.
And then while they do that, what do they find? Oh, they find the Millennium Falcon, which had gotten captured in the first segment of what we talked about.
Yeah, the previous. Well, because they left it behind in orbit of Endor.
Oh, right.
So because they left on Kabarak's ship to go to Onager, and they left the Falcon at Endor, and then one of the Star Destroyers located it. It was like, hey, why the hell is the Falcon just sitting here? And so the Imperials like the Imperials are just like, you know what? We might have. Thrawn was like, we might have use for this later. Let's pick it up and stick it in a box.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And so that's why it's here.
Don't touch my stuff.
Yeah. So Luke sees it, it's like, oh, well, we need a ship. Well, we're taking that one because we're going to be mad if we don't take it.
It's gonna be wanted. So, so Leia finally, and I just because being on Horoniger, now this is what I pulled from it, where Leia is at. It's an Imperial planet, but they're suffering under like a never-ending drought because the plants won't grow.
It's not a drought. It's more of a famine.
It's a famine. There we go. Drought famine.
The crops won't grow.
Right. And then so Leia, and again, this is my second thing that reminded me of Indiana Jones. She proves that there's a device inside this other robot, something or other, that makes the plants die. And it kind of reminded me of, again, this in the Temple of Doom. That's the way those Shankra stones worked in that Indian village, because the bad guys came along and they grabbed them, if you remember that film, which I'm sure, of course, you do. And then when they ran off with them back to the palace, all the crops died in that village and all of their animals turned to dust and all this, and so that's why Indy went to the Temple of Doom to get them back, to restore life to the village, whatever it is. So that is, it's not like, they invented that concept like they didn't invent the concept of the whole Holy Grail thing, but it's funny to me that this series was obviously written after those two movies and maybe they were plucking from it. I don't know. That's what it reminded me of.
I mean, it's not explained as well in the comics here with what happened, but they kind of explain it a little bit in the first bit where we saw her on Honegger in Heir to the in the first part of Dark Force Rising. But basically what happened, for those who don't remember, is there was some battle above Honegger, a ship crashed, and allegedly what happened is like the engine coolant or whatever blew open, and so now the planet is poisoned.
Okay.
And so Darth Vader came down and was like, oh, you guys seem interesting. I'm going to help you.
Oh, boy.
And learning that it's like an honor-based system, so now the entire planet owes allegiance to Darth Vader and by extension to the Empire, and so they became assassins. But for that, Vader said that they were going to send help, and so what they ended up doing is sending these decontamination droids that were going to clear up the fuel spill. Through this, we learned that what happened is what the Empire did was they took the native culm grass that grows on this planet and genetically modified it so that it would kill any other plants, so that nothing else could grow. So the culm grass itself was continuing the poisoning that would keep the Noghri under the Empire's boot. And so that's the thing that wasn't clear here. And I don't know if it's just because whoever was doing the adaptation didn't quite understand what was going on.
Oh, that's not good.
So, but it was the grass itself wasn't like, oh, there's an acid that dissolves it. It was more of like the droid was killing the plants. It was the droid was planting the plants that were further leaching contaminants into the soil. So they would do stuff and clear out things slowly. But then the other grass that they were planting elsewhere or letting just run rampant would poison the soil so that you couldn't grow anything outside. Because there is a section, if I remember correctly, in the book where they have this spot. It might be in a later part, but there's a spot on Onager where they figured out how to like grow things on their own, hidden away. So that you know that it's so that there is something kind of shifty going on. So it's not just the plants are like the droids killing the plants. It's the plants are killing the planet, and the Empire did that. So it's a big. That's why the Noghri response is so big, which is not as clear here in the comic. It's not just the plants are bad and the droids are killing the plants. It's no, the Empire poisoned the entire planet on purpose to keep us in subjugation. That's why it's such a big deal.
Right. And that, had that been translated in that fashion, that would have made a lot more, that would have been a lot more on brand.
Yeah.
What you were
made
expecting.
A lot more sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's how the Empire really rolls stuff around. So, okay. So we're back with Han and Lando and the chubby, I wrote Chubby Beardo, the guy who's always smoking the cigar.
Niles Ferrier, douchebag supreme.
Yeah, exactly. And he's got, I went on and on about this because I was trying to figure it out. He's got an associate now who's holding a blaster who's just a big black squibble in this comic. He looks like literally a pencil drawing that somebody took like that pencil, because Peter was over here yesterday making a door for my studio, but he had this pencil where he would draw along where he needed to cut. So it's like one of those like painter's pencils, but somebody just went, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And he's just holding a blaster, and as it continues to go on, you get a little more definition out of it, so that when Han starts to fight it, and later on in this issue, or maybe it's even in the next one, it kind of starts to look like the Wolfman because it's got like fangs and like ears. But I'm like, I'll ask you, what the hell is that thing?
So
they don't even get into it.
Yeah, so it's something that translates better in the book because you don't have to see it, so your imagination can make it into whatever you want it to be.
Okay.
So what this thing is,
that's what this guy
yeah,
did.
So what this thing is, it's a shadow. So it's a being that kind of absorbs light, and so you can't see it very well, and it literally just looks like a shadow on a wall. So you just can't see it very well. So there's a couple panels in here, like a few before this, like Han and Lando talk to Douchebag Supreme again, and the shadow hides 2 tracking devices on the Falcon. So one they find and one they don't. Which also includes one of my favorite panels where Ferrier drops Thrawn's name and Han and Lando didn't know it, and they're like, "Oh, Thrawn, huh? Thanks." And you just see him like he's got his cigar out, and all of a sudden it's like it points up, and you see him like stick his jaw like, "Oh shit!"
I hope I didn't.
Funny panel.
Reminds me of a bit from The Simpsons where they're Krusty the Clown. They're doing an there's an investigation going on around him about hidden money, and they call this fat guy sweating and obviously in a tropical location says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't disclose any information about that customer's secret illegal account." Clunk. "Oh crap, I definitely should have said it was secret. Oh crap, I definitely should have said that he was a customer. Oh crap, I definitely shouldn't have said that it was illegal. Oh, it's too hot today."
Yeah, it's kind of that. But yeah, so the shadow just kind of he kind of is mostly stays against walls so that he looks like just a shadow against a wall. Right.
And not like the Squiggly Wolfman.
Yeah, so not quite that.
Which could be another great name for the episode.
So it's so an interesting way that they're trying to like show him in the comics, because he's really hard to like do because he's literally just a shadow. But that's it. That is the bit where like in the next issue, Han fights it and it gets really, really weird.
Yeah. It's bizarre stuff. So, but anyway, where Han and Lando are is they're on a casino ship that's underwater. And then Thrawn shows up and he's like, "Well, okay, we're just going to have to blow it up now." And this was what I thought was interesting. And it translates back to what a lot of people, I think, who know Thrawn through both Rebels and then subsequently in Ahsoka, but really more so in Rebels because the character's more fleshed out, is that he knows he wants to blow up the ship, but it's going through this like densely packed underwater reef system. And he's like, yeah, it's a beautiful work of space art, and I'm really kind of bummed that we have to do that, but we got to do what we got to do. And I liked it because we learn about Thrawn in Rebels because kind of one of the very first, and they produced a really nice limited edition kind of set piece Black Series action figure about it that I think was a San Diego exclusive, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. You know the one I'm talking about, where it's Thrawn, but it's also, it comes with, and it was the first release of Thrawn for the Black Series, but he also comes with like a Jedi Guardian mask and other pieces of art that he kind of all has in his personal Star Destroyer like ready room.
Yep.
And so that really, I like that. That really threw back to this, I thought.
Yeah. Well, because Thrawn is like, they don't show it as much in the comics, but Thrawn talks about art in the books a lot.
Yeah,
there's lots of scenes of, and this is why, like, well, it doesn't really show up in any of the other stuff that they do, but it explains a little bit of like Thrawn's interest in Ezra in Rebels, where Thrawn likes to teach. In the books, in every single Thrawn book where Thrawn is actually alive, because there's a couple of books where like he's mentioned, but he's not actually there. Yeah. For those who don't know,
it's an illusion.
Spectre of the past and Vision of the future. He's not actually there.
Right.
But in every other book, including all of the new like the new novels that Timothy Zahn did on, the canonical novels, all of those, Thrawn always has basically an apprentice who he can pass knowledge onto. And so he was kind of taking Ezra under that a little bit when he had some of his conversations with him, where he would talk about like, this particular piece of art and how it tells me this, or in Rebels particularly, not with Ezra, but remember that scene where he's standing with Hera and he's explaining what the Kalikori means.
Right.
Like, to her, and you can see like the wheels going, like he's learning about me just by looking at this.
Right.
And so that's something that Thrawn does all the time in the books, and every time, like it's easier for Zahn to show Thrawn telling someone else what he's deduced rather than having Thrawn like you see the wheels inside Thrawn's head, because Thrawn is so smart.
Right.
Like, how do you describe?
I'm so smart.
How do you do that? How do you do that both so that it's believable, and then so that it's also like logical, so that like even if I don't function at that level, I can be like, okay, that makes sense. So in the books, Zahn goes, Thrawn is now explaining what this means, so we don't have to see necessarily how he got there in the fullest way, but you can see him guiding someone else to get there. And that's something that's really cool about this character.
Self-discovery. I remember, that reminds me back from my days when I was a trainer. It was the part, encouraging self-discovery, getting someone to kind of walk down the path by themselves for them to teach themselves. All right, so we're moving into the 6th issue. Obviously, he doesn't blow them up, or they escape. But yeah, this is when I wrote down my Han escapes from the Squiggle, and I said, please explain the Squiggle to me. But when he's fighting him, I love this, like, weird sound effects. I forgot to mention the last issue. I really did like the explanation of, or the sound effect when Luke powers on his lightsaber when they're doing the big escape thing. It goes snap hiss, which is a great way to describe a lightsaber activation. It's kind of one of the better ones I've seen.
That's the one in the books all the time.
Oh, okay.
All the time. That is the description of how the lightsaber ignites.
The snap hiss. I like that. However, Han picks his blaster up off the ground, and the sound effect is fracked. F-R-A-K-T. So frack, like frack from Battlestar Galactica with a T. I mean, it's weird, but in its defense, what sound effect would it even make? And why do you need a sound effect? It's like, I'm picking this up. But again, in a still photograph or a still drawing environment, it's difficult to convey movement unless you have some kind of sound effect.
Maybe he's trying to describe both Han's hands coming around the grip and it clacking on the ground as he's picking it up. So it's
Yeah, but he's picking it up off the ground, and I mean maybe Fract is like he drags it a little bit or something. It just seems it like really was like whoa. So yeah, he fights a Wolfman. Obviously, he is successful, and
he uses alcohol and sets him on fire.
Yeah, that's how you get rid of a Frankenstein. So maybe he's more of a Frankenstein. I'm not exactly sure. I said I love there's a Senate meeting aboard the ship that they escape to, and it's just one table, and I'm like I prefer that for the Senate, and it's much less boring if you just have like 8 people around a table. But Han goes toe to toe with Dickface, the Bothan senator whose name is escaping.
Falea, yeah.
Oh, such a dick, and he really kind of shines in this episode, or this issue, of being just a real dick.
He is,
yeah, exactly, because he's like, and we get a little bit more of this as it goes on, but we see Mara, and she's having these Vietnam flashbacks about Palpatine going kill Luke.
Yes,
and you don't, and it's obviously it's painting her because it'd be painful if some ghost was menacing you and sending you messages. But she and Luke are starting to coalesce a little bit. There's not really something going on yet, but she obviously is not.
There's not the same level of animosity.
Yeah, she's not super focused on killing him. So we're about to get into action time. So Han and Luke and Lando are going to go find the fleet. They finally have the coordinates.
Yeah, but Card gives the Senate the coordinates, and so Falea is going to do a scouting thing because he's like, I have to do this. And then Card's like, by the way, guys, here's the coordinates so that you guys can go take a look too, because Falea is a jerk.
But I do love, like I said, I continue to love data storage devices in Star Wars. And this goes back to particularly how it was highlighted in the original film, but also in Rogue One, is that if you have some data, you have to have it on a giant friggin' card. And this is like a big, giant purple ID case that like maybe like a small purse for a woman if it was, because it's like, here's the coordinates. I'm like, it's got to be a series of numbers and I have to have this big, what am I supposed to do with this big purple card?
Yeah, it looks like it's purple slot. It looks like it's a data card from the original series, just with more data, just with more grooblies on it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I love it in like, well, we have spaceships and fly around in space, but this is how we don't have email. So, or text, like I'll text you the coordinates.
We still have floppy disks, and that's how we transfer. That's how we transfer files.
Exactly correct. So yes, they find the super fleet, and I did note that the ships in this Katana fleet kind of look like Battlestar Galactica without the pylons. Yeah, they're just because they're big, kind of big, long. Like it's got a bulbous front and then a skinny middle part,
and then a bulbous in the back. Yeah,
I
hadn't really thought about that, but yeah, it does. Yeah. It does look a lot like a Battlestar.
It's a Battlestar without the pylons. So yeah, I'm like, yeah, things are gonna go great, except for then Dickface shows up and he's like, I've got a legal arrest warrant for Solo and Lando and Luke for all you guys being here. And Han's like, blow me. And then I think Leia's like, yeah, when Han's acting like this, you're not gonna get him.
Yeah, pretty much. Which she's
so
right.
Then, yeah, and so then Dickface's solution is to pull out a gun and point it at Leia instead. So I'm like, okay, yeah, you're definitely going in the right direction.
Yep.
It's not the first of no, it's the first of 2 in this issue that made me roll my eyes, because we get like a hacky throwback line. We get never tell me the odds as they're trying to figure out how to do this fight, and then we end the issue with I have a bad feeling about this, and I'm like, you know what? Okay, I get it. It's just kind of like what I thought was the greatest hits when they were doing the break-in back there.
Yeah.
I guess they got to toss those things out, but for me, it always makes the eyes roll. I really just don't care.
I mean, it's I have a bad feeling about this is a very classic Star Wars line, so it shows up all the time. So, I mean,
I guess
in the book, I think it was more of I think it wasn't the last line; it was just kind of there. But
yeah,
with this one, it's just
kind of there.
This one is just kind of we want to emphasize that this is bad. It's like,
yeah,
we kind of knew that.
Yeah, it's bad. Oh, is it?
Because like at the end, you figure out that like there's only 15 ships here because the Empire figured out where they were and took the rest of them. Because there were like a couple hundred of these things.
Yeah.
So yeah. And we also get where in a way where Rise of Skywalker got its idea where Card's ragtag fleet shows up and starts helping the Republic people against the Empire.
They're just people.
Yep.
We get more like mustache twirling moments from Dick-Face Bothan guy. Nobody cares if their enemies die, and what other uses are soldiers for a politician? I mean, oh my God.
Yeah, it's a massive dick.
Yeah. It's at this point where we get another bug-eyed Imperial officer when Gandalf is showing up and he's talking comms to Thrawn because he's going to come aboard the ship, and this really freaks out some dude sitting in, because the Imperial bridges, the commanders are up top and everybody else is in the pit. So this guy is obviously in the pit, but he has his back to Thrawn, so you see Thrawn up high, and there's a close up on this guy's face, and he's like,
yeah,
he's like really freaking out.
Well, Cabal's is a dingbat, like no one wants him around.
I know. So he's just like, again, I was super annoyed that people had to keep saying Organa Solo instead of I said pick one or just call her Leia Lakeshare, because I think that would be cooler if she just kind of planted a flag and said, hey, I just want to be called this one thing. So then we finally get the Star Wars part of the Star Wars where they're Star Warsing, and like you said, there's the big civilian fleet that shows up, and Mara is so she's off on her own flying. She's in a ship. It's like an X-wing. Is that what do they call them? A headhunter? Is it like
Z95? Yeah,
so Z95. I thought.
So in the comic, they described it as a scout X-wing,
right?
But
a little cleaner lines.
But it's a Z95,
and she's wearing
she's used multiple times. Like if you've read the there's a Mara Jade comic that came out, which I found and tracked down.
Good, yeah.
But
it's probably there on the app because I know you're reading.
Yeah.
You're reading.
It's a good one, but she flies a Z95 in that. So, so it's just kind of a Mara Jade ship. So
it's
they just
Mara Jade ship.
So they just like to have her fly that thing.
And she also has a cool ass helmet. It's very 90s. I think she looks very kind of stylized, so that works.
Yeah.
She also
hilariously looks like the helmets that they used for the Resistance in the sequel trilogy.
Oh my God, you're right. Yeah, there are no new ideas. Mara, however, does get blown up, but she has a convenient like astronaut ejection seat. It's kind of like back to Battlestar. That's what Apollo did when they were doing the big resurrection battle, and he was flying the stealth star, and he got blown up, and he was just drifting through space. And so that's good because you get two choices when you get blown up and you're flying like a fighter craft in space. You just die instantly, which is what happens 99% of the time, or you can somehow just kind of float through space and maybe somebody would find. And he does get found because it was funny. It gets explained in the last like 4 or 5 panels. Luke used his abilities and found her easily, but then you don't see a rescue or hear from her again in the rest of this issue. So I'm just like, okay, she's okay.
Yeah.
So it
happens more in the book, but they cut it out because it was like, we're running out of time.
Now, the ship obviously got boarded by imps. So you see the stormtroopers are following through. This was, I think, Luke pioneered the first boomerang lightsaber maneuver because he flings it. He flings it and smashes a window that all the imps get sucked out into space, which is kind of a risky maneuver because, unless there's a little, because that happened in episode 3, that Grievous did that by chucking a spear at the window and he broke it, and then he was able to get out that way. But then a big
Blastor
blue Blastor came across and saved them all. So, but the boomerang lightsaber thing is popular in the prequels and in Lego Star Wars. That was always one of my favorite moves. Is you could hit it certainly go wum, 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 wum.
Very popular in Jedi Outcast as well.
There you go. This is where I mentioned that the Katana fleet ship looks like a Battlestar, and I'm like, wonder why? Because they turn it into a battering ram because they pilot one of them directly into
one of them right into it, right into the adjudicator.
Yeah, exactly. So they get rid of that one pretty easy. We get a little tee up. Well, you got to come aboard. We got to have a chat because I figured out the Empire's plan and it's not good. I'm like, are they going to tell us what it is? And they do in a minute here. But yeah, crazy Gandalf comes aboard Thrawn's ship and they're kind of going toe to toe, and it's kind of turned into this big dick swing kind of, well, I'm a big Jedi and blah blah blah, this thing and that thing, and Thrawn's like, well, I can get rid of you because the Empire doesn't really give a shit about you, and blah, 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 blah. And then they kind of wrap it on that, so it's just kind of very tense. And then we get the Empire's big plan is that they're going to staff all these ships they stole with clones, which means so much less now after we know that after we found out what the Clone Wars were, how it happened, and then how the clones were disposed of.
Yeah. So the only thing
Yeah.
with the clones here is that the idea when the books were written was
Mhm.
that it took a very long time to grow the clones, and in the
Right.
in the prequels, it still does take a while to grow clones. Like,
Which and they found a way to explain that away, because they're like, yeah, we build clones and then we rapidly program them
rapidly age
and
them.
age them, and so you can have a complete clone.
Yes.
And they don't, they give you a time, but they don't say.
But
You know,
it's fairly quick. But the thing is, and we'll learn more of this in The Last Command. But spoiler,
Right.
the reason that this is a big deal all ties to Mount Tantus has the Sparty cylinders,
Mhm.
which hilariously we saw in the Bad Batch.
Right.
But so that's where they're doing it, is Mount Tantus with these Sparty cylinders, and the reason that it's terrifying is why they have the Asala Miri, which they
Mhm.
haven't mentioned yet. But
Okay.
the reason is that if you grow a clone too quickly, they go crazy. Because it's unnatural in their connection, and because all life relies on the Force, like there's just something that doesn't work that way. So if
Okay.
you have the Asala Miri surrounding the cloning facility,
It brings the balance.
you can age them up in a week.
Ooh.
So on Camino, it took at least a couple months, like probably maybe a year.
Okay.
But for Thrawn, he can do it in like 2 or 3 weeks for a full batch of clones. And so that's what makes this so terrifying, is not only does he have like several hundred ships, but he can staff them in like a month and a half, all of them with thousands of people, and then just murder your face. So
there you go. Well, and as we wrap on this, because I know I rated each segment, I think I almost maybe rated the first 3 issues a bit higher, because I thought there were like more hacky moments in this that kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I do like, if I look at the whole thing kind of as a 6-issue arc, I think they're building nicely and kind of building in some, well, you want to keep reading this because we're going to get into the next 6-issue miniseries breaking down the third film or the third book. I think they're building it to a bigger showdown. I feel invested. I want to see where it's going to go. Even knowing kind of bits and pieces of what's to come, and how some of it, the eventual storytelling is they kind of got rid of that and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I thought it was pretty enjoyable. It's layered. They're building to a bigger picture, particularly like with Luke and Mara, but they're not like really leaning on it heavy.
No.
They're exchanging meaningful glances and shit, and they didn't turn it into a Hallmark movie, which I appreciate.
That relationship evolves over the course of the EU. Zahn just kind of teed it up of like, well, if it wants to go somewhere, it can go somewhere.
Right. So I was looking. I wanted to look real quick and just see what the schedule is, because I'm like, we do start so we do get into the first 3 issues of The Last Command in our next episode. Then unfortunately we have a bye week, but we might find a way to squeeze that in. I don't know, because I would love to, ostensibly before we got into Maul, I would love to do this whole next one, but I also don't want to cram it into one, because I feel like
that'd be
we won't get
bad
enough detail. So we'll kind of kajigger on that, but anyway, this wraps us up. So the next issue or the next episode of our show, one way or the other, we will start The Last Command. It's a little tougher. I could read that thing, and then when we get back, we could record it and get it out. I think it's possible.
Yeah.
We'll discuss.
Yes.
Because otherwise I would hate to do the first 3 issues
and then
when I'm looking at our schedule. Yeah, we do Maul. We do a little primer on Mando and Grogu to kind of get everybody up to speed. And then we do the spoiler cast. And then it's June before we come back to finish it. And I don't love on that so much. So we might just have to play with things a little bit. So more to come on that. But that's our show. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being patient for the fact that we were off for a month. That was because of me and going on the Star Trek cruise, which if you're a Trekker and want to hear about that, April and I did do our annual wrap up of going and doing that. I'm still after Peter and his brother to go on the Star Trek cruise. We'll see what happens. Plug. But anyway, but I appreciate everybody tuning in, and we're glad to be back. Peter, where do people find you out there if they want to talk more about Timothy Zahn?
You can find me around the interwebs at Petrus Aquinas on most social media. I don't say a lot, but I mean, if you poke at me and say, I want to talk about Thrawn, I will say things.
Yes, there will be Thrawn-ing.
There will be Thrawn-ing.
There will be Thrawn-ing.
Otherwise, you can find me mostly on our Discord. You can also find me on ELH's Twitch and YouTube channel, where we do role-playing games, mostly Star Trek, and also behind the scenes on Starship Excelsior.
Excellent. And I am available on most all socials except for X as at the C3, TheCeeThree. I do that. I also handle our Secret Friends Unite handles on all those social medias. Just search for it and you will find it. I need to get back to doing my little kitchen chats. I've kind of fallen off of that. I've kind of gotten away from TikTok because I've heard kind of some bad stuff about, management, regime change, and all that kind of good stuff. But if you go to our YouTube channel, that is a great place to hear not only audio of all of our podcasts, because Peter and I were successful in fixing our RSS feeds not that long ago, which is awesome. But you also get full video of all of our spotlight interviews when we talk to creators. You'll find all of those there, but I will continue as I get back in the kitchen chats, putting those on our YouTube channel and kind of promoting it there. And you find that on my other socials as well. So that's it. That's it for Holocron. Friends, as always, thank you for joining us. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring and to keep on trucking.
May the force be with you.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.